The Grand Hall in Addis Ababa was filled with diplomats, journalists, and leaders from across the African continent. Flags of dozens of nations draped across the ceiling, shimmering under golden lights. Conversations hummed in multiple languages: French, English, Arabic, Portuguese, yet the air carried an underlying tension. Something was about to happen. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, had been invited to speak on matters of cooperation and security. But many suspected his true intentions went far deeper, an attempt to extend influence and control over a continent already weary of outside interference. At the opposite side of the hall sat Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young, fiery leader of Burkina Faso, barely in his 30s, yet already a symbol of African defiance. He had become the voice of a generation that refused to kneel. For Traoré, this was not merely politics, it was about dignity, sovereignty, and the soul of Africa itself. Netanyahu rose, adjusted his tie, and looked directly at the audience. His voice was calm but carried a razor-sharp edge. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "Africa stands at a crossroads. The world is watching. Security, development, prosperity, these are within your grasp. But let me be clear, those who resist cooperation, those who reject the hand of partnership, will find themselves isolated, weakened, and left behind." The words dripped with calculated menace. He paused deliberately before continuing. Burkina Faso in particular must decide, will it stand with progress, or will it stubbornly cling to outdated dreams of independence that lead only to chaos? Gasps echoed in the room. Diplomats shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The statement was no subtle suggestion. It was a threat, veiled in diplomatic language but heavy with intimidation. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, slowly, Ibrahim Traoré rose from his chair. His eyes blazed with determination, his fists clenched at his sides. The cameras turned toward him instantly. Every lens, every microphone hungry to capture what he would say. His voice thundered across the hall. "Mr. Netanyahu, you speak of progress, but your progress means chains. You speak of partnership, but your partnership means submission. Africa is not a child waiting for instructions. We are not your backyard, not your project, and certainly not your subjects." The audience erupted, some with applause, some with nervous murmurs. Traoré raised his hand, demanding silence, and continued. "Burkina Faso stands where it has always stood, with dignity, with freedom, with the unshakable belief that our destiny is ours alone to shape. No threat, no promise, no intimidation will ever silence Africa again." Netanyahu's jaw tightened. He tried to interrupt, but Traoré pressed on, his words like fire cutting through the air. "You come here thinking Africa can be bought, bullied, or broken. But you forget history. You forget that our people endured centuries of chains. Yet still we rise. You forget that our soil carries the blood of those who refuse to bow. You forget that every attempt to silence Africa has only made us louder." The hall shook with applause. Delegates from Mali, Guinea, and even distant Tanzania rose to their feet in solidarity. Some leaders who had remained silent for years now found courage in Traoré's defiance. "This," Traoré declared, pointing at the African flags above, "is not the Africa of yesterday. This is an Africa that stands tall, that refuses to kneel, that will never again be a playground for the ambitions of others." The confrontation spread like wildfire across the globe. Within hours, social media exploded. Clips of Traoré's fiery speech trended on every platform. Hashtags like #AfricaStrong and #TraoréDefiance dominated timelines. In Paris, commentators called it a seismic moment in post-colonial history. In Washington, analysts debated whether Traoré was a reckless nationalist or the voice of a new global order. In Tel Aviv, Netanyahu's allies scrambled to reframe the event, insisting his words had been misunderstood. But for ordinary Africans, the message was clear. This was not just about Burkina Faso. It was about every nation that had ever been told to obey, every people who had ever been silenced, every dream that had ever been crushed under the weight of foreign power. As the conference ended, Netanyahu departed with a stiff smile. But the damage was done. His intimidation had backfired spectacularly. Instead of silencing Africa, he had amplified its voice. Meanwhile, Traoré walked out surrounded by cheering youth delegates, fists raised in the air. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be retaliation, pressure, perhaps even betrayal from within. But he also knew something greater had been born that day, a movement of dignity, resistance, and unbreakable resolve. In the days that followed, murals of Traoré's defiant stance appeared on walls from Ouagadougou to Lagos. His words were quoted in schools, sung in songs, painted on banners. And though the political battles raged on, one truth could no longer be denied. Africa had spoken, and the world would never forget.